Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is Resalest Remarkable Books, number 81. The first book today is The Wright Brothers by David McCullough, 2015. This is a fairly recent book, only 3 years old. David McCullough is one of my favorite authors. I just love his books. This is a wonderful book. It's the story of Orville and Wilbur Wright, two brothers and bicycle store owners from Dayton, Ohio. They proved that man could fly in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. First airplane flight. They were hardworking, determined, persevering, brave, good men. They first became established in France with flying demonstrations before the public. See, they had their first flights in North Carolina, but it wasn't publicly, the public didn't know about it, and there was nobody to see what had happened. Fame and fortune did not change their good natures, although Wilbur died young at age 45 from typhoid fever after being weakened by overwork and stress from lawsuits. This is an outstanding book. Yeah, that was the saddest thing is, they became famous and wealthy and famous, and then he got real busy, was working too much, and then there were lawsuits they had to file because, they had invented the airplane and others were trying to steal their work and get the financial rewards. So he had all this, as I mentioned, stress from lawsuits, and he got sick. He's sick and died. So that was sad. It was very hard because they were close, those two brothers, Wilbur and Orville lived on many years. Then there was the sister who yesterday I was just in Oberlin, Ohio. And there's the art museum there, outside of which there's a memorial fountain for the sister of the Wright brothers, Catherine. So this is an inspiring story. These fellows, they were really into what they were doing. They enjoyed their work, and they had an idea. Of course, this is a man has long wanted to fly, looking at birds and so forth, and they did it. They did it, and boy, talk about hardworking. And they had very tough conditions in North Carolina where they did their flying. They needed they had to pack up all their stuff. They built their airplanes in Dayton, Ohio, and then they had to pack them up and by train travel to North Carolina, Kitty Hawk, and reassembled the airplane. And then they chose North Carolina because of the beach. They were in a kind of a remote area with sand, so they thought, well, if they'll have a soft landing, and they needed wind for their flight, so the wind off the Atlantic Ocean. And they had some very tough conditions there, especially with mosquitoes, and it was very tough, and some cold weather, hot weather during the day, and real interesting. These local people there, it was a simple fishing area. And these people thought, what are these guys doing? So when they first got their first a few short airplane flights there, and then when they were unable to really get any interest in the United States from the U.S. government for what they had done. They were trying to make a living, trying to make money from this. So they decided to go to France, where they got some governmental interest, and large crowds came. And this is really when they became established. This is a very inspiring story. So whatever your dreams are, you want to do something new, and then go for it. Work hard. These guys, boy, did they work hard. And this was the work they were meant to do because they had this. They were mechanical fellows, and boy, they persevered, and really, really something. An amazing story, true story, wonderful world history. The next book is 40 Chances, Finding Hope in a Hungry World by Howard G. Buffett, 2013. This is a very interesting book. The author is the son of Warren Buffett, who is, I believe, one of the wealthiest men in the world. Made money in investing. And so his son, Howard, this is the book that he wrote, and it's all about farming and fighting global hunger. It deals with the soil, and the earth, poverty, civil war, rainfall, irrigation, fertilizer, how to help. And the author is dedicated to help alleviating world hunger. So this is a fascinating book and very important. Farming is a very low status occupation, which is ironic because food is the number one need that we all have. We have to eat every day, and farmers are not respected. And generally work very, very hard and are poor, materially poor. So this guy, his father made all this money, so his Howard really doesn't have the pressure to make a living, but he does feel pressure to be productive, and he decided to get into farming, and he has his own farm. He has his own farm, I believe, in Iowa. So farming is like any business. There's a lot of expertise involved, and the machinery that you need to buy, and what the seasons, which are change. The weather's changing, and then the soil itself, which is different based on, depending on where you are, and the soil changes over time, depending through farm use, through agricultural use, and how to. So the whole idea is, he's dedicated to trying to produce more food because you have the huge global population, and we know there's hunger in the world, and it's wrong. People should not be hungry in this world. So wonderful, very inspiring book. He's really studying life in third world countries and the challenges of civil war, which mean that people can't grow food because it's not safe. And all the other factors, the rainfall, as I mentioned, the irrigation, fertilizer, and it's a real interesting book. And he's dedicated himself, this man, Howard Buffett, the son of Warren Buffett, he's dedicated himself to farming and trying to produce more food for the world, to try to cut down or eliminate global hunger. So God bless him. This is a wonderful book. Really, really enjoyed it. Very inspiring. The next book is 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, 2007. This is a tremendous book. It's the author wrote the book The Kite Runner, which became famous, and they made the movie about, very famous and very compelling movie. Now this is another historical novel, and it's set in Afghanistan. You have these characters: Maryam, Jalil, Nana, Rashid, Laila, Tariq, Zalmai, and Aziza. And it's set in Afghanistan. You have the communist takeover, the Russian invasion, civil war, the Taliban. This is a wonderful historical novel set in Afghanistan. The Russian invasion in 1979 in December, and then the resistance against the Russians. And eventually they left, and there was this terrible civil war, and then the Taliban takeover, and they were really terrible government. The American invasion. Now the characters in this book, you have Rashid, who's a very cruel husband, and Maryam and Lila, his two wives, who become, actually they really become to think of themselves as sisters because they both endure very hard times. There is a happy ending. The book is full of tragedy. Basically, this Rashid is very abusive to his first wife, Maryam, and then he has the second wife. And then there's this scene where Rashid is strangling Lila, his second wife, and it looks like he's going to kill her. So the scene, Rashid is strangling his second wife, Lila. Now, by this time, Maryam and Lila had become good friends. At first, there was, they were not friends. There was this tension. They're both wives of this guy, but they become very good friends. And anyway, in this very dramatic scene, Maryam sees that he looks like Rashid is going to kill Lila, so she kills him. I think she killed him with a shovel or something, and then later she's arrested and executed. So obviously that's very sad. And for a short time, they're trying to decide what to do. That he's dead. This really bad guy is dead, and Lila's like, oh, let's leave the country. We can escape. We can be happy, and we'll just leave, run away. And Miriam's like, no, this is during the Taliban era when the men have tremendous power and women were very much abused nationally in Afghanistan. She says, no, these guys, they're going to hunt us down. So she says, I've killed this guy and I need to pay for it. And, murder is wrong. So she turns herself in and then there's a trial, and she is convicted and executed in this soccer stadium, and then but Lila is, she thought, well, if they run away, Lila will be implicated, and they'll both end up being executed. So she doesn't want that. So she cares about it. So it's a beautiful story of friendship. So Miriam really sacrifices her life. She saves the life of Lila, and she doesn't get a fair trial. Basically, she was preventing murder, which is, I think, a legitimate reason for killing the guy. Anyway, so Miriam her husband was murdered, and Miriam is executed. And Lila finally marries Tariq, who is this guy who she had known earlier, who had left the country, during when the Russians had invaded eventually during the hard times in Afghanistan. And then near the end of the story, there's the U.S. invasion. And this means girls can go to school again. And Lila had grown up going to school. Then, basically, under the Taliban, girls did not go to school. All the schools for girls were closed. So, it has a happy ending. Lila, she has a daughter who goes to school, I believe, and so it has a happy ending after the American invasion. This Khaled Hosseini is a wonderful Afghan-American author who really does a tremendous job of showing readers what life has been like in Afghanistan. So wonderful, tremendous historical fiction. The next book is King Leopold's Ghost, a story of greed, terror, and heroism in colonial Africa, by Adam Hochschild, 1998. Wow, what a book. This is the history of the Belgian Congo. When Belgium, a very small country in Europe, had this huge colony in Central Africa based on the Congo River. It's a story of greed for wealth from ivory and rubber. According to this book, 10 million Africans murdered by the Belgians in their insane quest and frenzy to become wealthy from ivory and rubber, ivory from elephants and rubber production. The people terrorized because they basically were enslaved, and they're living their lives, and then the Belgians took over, and then they were basically enslaved and forced to work to produce rubber for the Belgians. So they were terrorized. A lot of them got their hands cut off if they resisted. It's a very shameful story. And the noble souls who fought for justice, tragic and heroic. This is the part of life. You have some horrible things happening, tragic things. There were people who there was heroism. Yeah, a lot of shameful things happening, but heroic people who, especially those who tried to advertise, tell the world what was going on, because Leopold was the king of Belgium, and this was his personal colony, and he tried to keep it a secret. They all tried to keep it a secret, what they were doing, how much harm they were inflicting, and all these 10 million Africans who died, who were murdered. So this was kept secret, and his storyline was, he was there as a philanthropist, trying to help the people. But no, it wasn't true. And then you have some journalists, some very brave people who went in to expose what was going on and tell the world. See, God bless those people, and because they had that took courage, because they themselves could have been arrested. And now we know what happened. Very shameful, very, very tragic episode from world history. King Leopold's Ghost. And this Adam Hochschild did a tremendous job in telling the story of that shameful episode in world history. The next book is In the Sanctuary of the Soul, A Guide to Effective Prayer by Paramahansa Yogananda, 1998. Paramahansa Yogananda was from India. He was I believe, a great saint, and he's actually the leader of the church I'm involved in. This is a wonderful book. I read it during breaks when I was working at a nursing home. It's very inspiring. Inspired me to make a supreme effort in meditation, to meditate long and deep and achieve God union. And this is the wisdom of India, the great country. And Paramahansa Yogananda was one of the many saints from India who have helped the world and are helping the world to evolve. Wonderful book. The next book is And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, 2013. It's a wonderful book. His third and latest novel of Afghans in Afghanistan and around the world. So more historical, it's a story, it's a historical novel of Afghanistan and Afghans abroad. Set in Afghanistan, and of course a lot of Afghans left because of all the hard times that came after the Russian invasion, civil war, and the Taliban rule. And this book is the story of Abdullah and Pari, who are siblings, separated when their dad sold Pari. Pari's adopted mother took her to France, where she lived her life. She reconnected with Abdul in California many years later. He was old, confused, and couldn't accept her. This would be her brother. However, his daughter Pari bonded with her aunt Pari. His daughter, whom he named Pari, bonded with her aunt Pari. So this is another story, what people have gone through. Cultural issues, Afghans in America, and in this case, an Afghan immigrant in France. Actually, the mother was French, and so she decided at one point there was a wedding. There was a marriage in Afghanistan between this a French guy's daughter and an elderly Afghan. They had this child, or I think they had children, and so you have the cultural issues and so forth with people going abroad, and this, which is happening so much in today's world. So many people have left their countries and gone to other countries. So you have these cultural issues, and so what's a wonderful story. This Khaled Hosseini is an amazing author. I believe he's just written the 3 historical novels, and I recommend all 3 highly. The next book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, 1988. This is a very short book. Coelho is, I believe, Brazilian. He has had 135 million copies of his books sold. Wow, so this guy has achieved tremendous success. This is a book of spirituality for the masses. It's a simple story. Santiago, a character, is a simple shepherd in Spain. He crosses into Africa, across the Sahara Desert to the pyramids of Egypt in pursuit of wealth, love, and purpose. And so there are some references which are very wise. So it's a short book, and this is not wisdom for individuals, serious spiritual seekers, but I think a positive influence on the world, because there is wisdom here, as I said, for the masses, and could inspire people to begin their spiritual search. Wonderful book. The next book is The Christmas Box Miracle by Richard Paul Evans, 2001. In 1994, Rick Evans wrote a short book for his daughters. He made 20 copies for family members. They liked it and shared it with friends who really liked it. Evans self-published, and The Christmas Box became popular in Utah. This short novel, eventually it became a national bestseller. It's the story of the death of a child, a mother's healing, and the power of prayer. And this guy has become extremely wealthy, and he's written quite a few books now. And this is actually the story he tells of his first book that he wrote. He worked really. It was a fairly short book. You can read it in like an hour, or maybe an hour and a half, or 2 hours. Very inspiring and a nice story. And people, and millions of, I don't know how many millions of copies have been written. In fact, he had to work hard in promoting it, and eventually he had a couple publishing companies competing with each other, and he eventually accepted a huge offer from one of them, like $10 million. So he's made a lot of money, and his books are all very positive. They promote prayer, and he does I believe he's Mormon, does a really good job, and he worked hard, and he worked not just, the writing of the book, I think, didn't take that much work, or time, but the promotion. Boy, did he work hard going to book fairs and so forth. These are positive. He's a positive force in the world. Richard Paul Evans. The next book is A Testimony of Love and Devotion, My Life Journey with Paramahansa Yogananda by Mary Peck Stockton, 2001. This is a woman's life story and how Self-Realization Fellowship, the church founded by Paramahansa Yogananda from India, helped her. And she met Yogananda and Dayamata, his successor, or president of SRF. She had plenty of trouble. Activity A lot of activity, but this the Blessed Path of SRF saved her, as it has been saving me since 1984. Jai Guru, wonderful book. The next book is Manifesting Divine Consciousness in Daily Life by Sri Mrinalini Mata, 2013. It's a really good book. This is the late president of Self-Realization Fellowship, describing how God is the answer to our problems. God contact, God union can bring lasting happiness. So more wisdom from India and the work of Paramahansa Yogananda. The next book is The Christmas Sweater by Glenn Beck, 2008. This is a story, a novel about Eddie, a 12-year-old who wants a certain bicycle for Christmas. His father had died and he was unhappy. On Christmas Eve or day, he has a long nightmare in which his mother died and he became very troubled. He wakes up very grateful for his mother, so there's a happy ending, and it's about God's love. Glenn Beck, of course, the famous political commentator and historian, whom I highly respect. The next book is The Irish Sports Pages by Les Roberts, 2002. This is a good book. Milan Jakovic strikes again. The Private Eye from Cleveland, Ohio, USA. It's a murder mystery. It's about Irish Americans, a jilted judge, a neglected wife, the Italian mafia, a Slovenian American hero following the Cleveland Indians, Browns, and Cavaliers, trying to crack the case in Cleveland, City of Champions. The next book is The Christmas Box by Richard Paul Evans, 1993. This is good. It's a very short and extremely popular book. A man, his wife, their daughter, and an elderly woman whose infant daughter died. The man learns to treasure his daughter's childhood and not work so much. It's pretty easy to read, a quick read. God is our Father and our Mother who loves us all very much. Yeah, this Richard Paul Evans, I believe, this is the book that his first book, that became extremely popular, I think, worldwide. And now they build these statues. He started it, and people go. This is a very appealing for parents whose children have died, to give them hope that that they can be happy, and and they can recover from this terrible grief of losing a child. So he's really helped a lot of people. Really love this book. The next book is Inside the Revolution, How the Followers of Jihad, Jefferson, and Jesus Are Battling to Dominate the Middle East and Transform the World by Joel C. Rosenberg, 2009. This is an incredible book. The author makes the case that there are three major forces in the Middle East and in the Muslim world. Osama bin Laden, of course, who has been a leader of Islamic Jihad, making war on the West in the name of his ideas for Islam and Muslim rule. Thomas Jefferson, who's considered the face of democracy, since most Muslim countries have dictatorships, and they do not have good government. It's because the government's not accountable. The people do not vote, do not elect their political leaders. And a lot of Muslims in the Middle East, they think we should have democratic rule. And this is what they want. And so Thomas Jefferson inspires them, because he's considered like the face internationally of democracy, or American democracy. And thirdly, Jesus Christ. According to this book, there is a strong Christian movement in the Muslim world, even though it's very, very tough. And some countries, that Christianity is illegal. And you have this huge obstacle for Muslims, because to leave, if you're born Muslim and you become leave Islam and join another religion, including Christianity, that's considered apostasy, and the penalty is death. But nevertheless, a lot of Muslims are getting fed up with at least the way Islam is today, which has been kind of pretty hard on people. And then they find themselves attracted to the kindness and the emphasis on love in Christianity and Jesus Christ. So these three forces are battling for influence, and so who knows? We'll see what's going to happen. It's hard to know what's going on with the growth of Christianity in the Muslim world, because there's such a strong cultural bias against it, and also governmental, especially in countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia that do not allow religious freedom. So the people are really scared. They might be Christian, but how would you know? Because they have to keep it. They have to be secret about it. So these are all powerful influences in the Muslim world: Osama bin Laden, Thomas Jefferson, and Jesus Christ. So this book talks about Islamic jihad, democracy, Christianity, Muslims fed up with dictatorships, and the cruelty in the practice of Islam for many of them. Millions of Muslims, this author says, are becoming Christians. So this is really a wonderful book. It shows that it's hard to know what's going on in the world, but this author does a really good job of getting into this very sensitive topic. Wonderful. The next book is To Be Victorious in Life by Paramahansa Yogananda, 2002. This is a wonderful book. It's lectures originally published in the Self-Realization Fellowship magazine, Wisdom and Inspiration to make a stronger effort on the Self-Realization Fellowship path. Jai Guru. Again, the wisdom of India, the country that I consider really the holy country for the world, and has done so much good, because the wisdom of India now is going all over the world and helping people to change for the better. Wonderful book. The next book is Why God Permits Evil and How to Rise Above It by Paramahansa Yogananda, 2002. Wonderful book taken from the SRF magazine, The Spiritual Life, The Journey Back to God, Changing from Worldly Desires to the Desire for God. And why God permits evil, basically, so because we have freedom to choose. He doesn't want us to be slaves. So and evil is very tempting and very attractive, and this is why people choose evil, and people develop alcoholism and die, or give in to anger or violence and so forth. But eventually people get tired of that and will turn to the path of good, because God keeps His promises of happiness. So this is a wonderful, wonderful book. It appears we're out of time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find a good history book to read, or any book to read, because there's so many wonderful books out there waiting to be enjoyed. So God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.